Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 147 from the Dr. Obvious department, recorded on Wednesday, May 19th, 2021 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Yes, we're recording this show on a Wednesday, Tyler, because I am getting married on Friday and probably wouldn't be able to do the show. So, and then like Cal Ripken and Lou Gehrig, all streaks must come to an end after 147 straight shows. I'm sitting out next week, and next Friday you're going to have John Mark Bantock from Catalyst Connect is going to be your co-host. So that should be good.
Oh, it's going to be a weird change of pace. I'm going to be a ship adrift for a week here.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, but I have a feeling I'm going to have fun. So anyway, hey, let's get to our announcements. We've got an upcoming webinar, Zoho Inventory Overview and Best Practices. That is on Tuesday, June 15th, 2021 at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then, of course, if you want to know about any of our upcoming events, you can just head over to crmzen.com and go ahead and click on the events tab. And there you will see everything that is coming up. So we've got we are really kind of cranking into the season here right now. I mean, next week you've got transform the way your team works together with WorkDrive, plan, collaborate, and execute projects efficiently in Zoho projects. What are Zobots? How can they benefit your business all the way in June 1st? So good stuff. We're trying to keep all these together. So anyway, if you can, head over there and you can see everything that is going on in the world of Zoho. And with that, let's dive right on into the news. All right. Well, our first story, Zoho Voice is now integrated with Zoho. This is a weird one. This is just announced here on the 17th. I'm not even sure what to make of this. So I like Zoho Voice. We've gotten it. We've tried it. It's got all the potential. But for some reason, they released it with absolutely no phone bridge integration, which was the craziest thing I've ever seen for this particular product. It just didn't make any sense. But now it's here. So now it's worth going ahead, trying out Zoho Voice, doing this the phone bridge integration, which connects you to all the different Zoho apps. So it'll work across all the apps, and you will be in good shape.
And I think this and then porting over numbers are the last two, I think, big blockers for this. I mean, this is really nice. Pretty much every telephony option that you can plug into Zoho in one way, shape, or form has little issues here and there. So we're kind of hoping maybe voice is going to be the silver bullet that just has that rock solid integration across the rest of their applications. So I think that'll be the last step. Once we can port numbers, I think we'll be headed on that way ourselves and make the final cutover.
Yep. And then Zoho Meeting, continuing on just kind of little tweaks here. In the Android app, you can now lock a meeting, meaning that once you basically won't allow anybody else into that meeting once you've gone ahead and locked it up. So prior to this, evidently, that was just a missing feature that was inside the app. You now can remove people. So just a small little tweak there, but kind of Zoho Meeting continuing to make some improvements and get better and better. And then we've got one more little piece of news here around Zoho Recruit, which is they've got business hours and calendar bookings are now part of Zoho Recruit.
I would imagine these probably function really similarly to the CRM, right? Where you can set these business hours and then actually from your calendar do the little bookings page. I will say there's actually one little extra thing about business hours that I don't think is very obvious. And this applies to the CRM. So I would assume that it applies to Zoho Recruit. So I'll put this out there just in case it sparks any joy for anybody. So when you're doing a workflow inside of CRM, you can create those scheduled actions. So, if a status goes to active, then 2 days later, send this email. Well, once you turn on your business hours, you can then make those schedule actions based on business days. So that option's not there unless you've just gone and turned on business hours and set them to just your standard Monday, Friday. So I would assume that that's going to be a similar thing here with Zoho Recruit, which will then allow you to actually set things up based on business days, which is nice. I mean, you don't want to email a candidate on a Sunday if you can help it. So anything you can do to keep that within the normal working hours is all the better.
So you're saying on a workflow, you can't set a workflow for business days until you turn on business hours?
Yes.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I bumped into it the other day because it was one of those things that I swore it was there and I couldn't find it in one of our client accounts. And so I was just poking around. I found the business hours under company details, turned it on, and then there it was in the workflow. So it's one of those things that's just kind of sneaky, but it is there. You just have to turn it on first.
Well, it's crazy. And the calendar bookings in here, if it's like the one in CRM, and I kind of looked at it, it kind of is. It's got a lot of benefit. It's interesting. The calendar booking in the CRM came out before Zoho bookings, and it has features that are still missing. It's got native Zoom integration. So it will actually go ahead and add Zoom meetings to your bookings. And it's kind of cleaner. There's a lot to it that's kind of nice. All of the booking programs are just missing. I think the big thing, at least for us, is that if you want to be able to have two people invited to one meeting and you need to check both their calendars, right?
Yeah, because we just do that all the time. It's just such a common use case. So you're going to book your kickoff. It's with Brett and I. Maybe if Josh wants to loop me in on something, we need a link for both of us. And I will say though, the bookings does do round robins pretty well. It has a little algorithm that balances loads, and we've actually implemented that for a couple clients. And so if all you need is round robin, bookings will actually get the job done. But it's that, book with two people at once functionality that's still just not quite there.
Yeah. And if you're watching us on YouTube, the interface for bookings is clean. I mean,
for the recruit bookings here.
Yeah. For the recruit bookings, it's super, super clean. This is actually different than the CRM one. So it's well done. Very, very nice. All right. And moving on with the news, even though we did this show a couple days before we normally do, there was still plenty of news this week, which was a good thing. So we had Zoho Mail Roundup Part 2. We covered Part 1 last week. So this is kind of everything that's happened over the last month or so, the changes they've made. And some of these we've had, some of them we've missed. I don't know. Was there anything in here that the kind of have 5 more that popped up in here? Mail merge extensions in a widget, revamped user profile section, CRM templates in Zoho Mail, which is really cool.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, I know. So that's just huge. We missed that announcement, huh?
Yeah, we must have.
Yeah.
I do like all the work they're doing to just unify things. It's you have something in one app, it's available in another, and they're just building more and more on top of that. And I'd be interested. I guess it would rely on the person in Mail. You'd be mailing a contact and it would pull from their CRM version of the contact, probably matching on email. Be curious if you could do it off of a deal or something like that. I would imagine probably contact email templates or lead email templates, but still nice to have, because I think one of the things that oftentimes happens, and especially when you get to like lead prospecting, is you send that initial email from the CRM with using a template. But then once someone responds, it's just so much more natural to pull up that email in your email client. And it's like you can try to train people to go back to that lead record and respond from within there, but it could be an uphill battle, right? When it's just sitting in your inbox for you. So still being able to pull like your next email in the chain for that prospecting outreach, I think is really slick.
Yeah, and what are these DRE connectors? So looking forward to accessing and modifying the data of any Zoho or third-party services, try the all-new DRE connectors and integrate Zoho Mail with any application of your choice. This is another big one that just kind of slipped in here. So I'm not sure.
I'm not familiar with a DRE connector.
I would think API, right? But a DRE stands for something different, I guess. Really interesting. I don't know what DRE stands for.
Yeah, I've not heard the term.
But it looks like they built some interesting connectors here, allowing you. Right now, they've just got some OAuth, some other stuff. So they've got some predefined. So this will definitely be something we'll want to play around with. I mean, Zoho Mail just kind of, you're right, to get better. And to that, on today, on the 19th, they announced that you now have snooze and reminders inside Zoho Mail. So this is effectively turned on. I think we had a hint of this last week. Yeah,
we had a little mention of it, but I think this is their full announcement around it.
Full blown announcement. So you can now Snooze, and you can basically have it for, they've got some defaults, 10 minutes, an hour, tomorrow at 10 a.m., next week at 10 a.m., or you can put in a custom date and time. So that's when you get an email and boy, I want this out of my inbox, but I like it to pop back into my inbox in 2 hours and I'll work on it then. It's kind of for a zero inbox kind of person, right?
Yeah. And we are obsessive about that internally.
we really are. And then they've set up email reminders as well. So you've got an income, but you want to be reminded of it. It's a little similar to Snooze, but they're basically going to give you a quick reminder. Let's say you've got a meeting scheduled over emails. You've got some follow-up. You can have reminders pop up, say, hey, follow up on this email, take care of it then. Kind of a version of Snooze, I guess, in its own way, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, very good. All righty. And then moving on, Zoho Projects for iOS has added a subfolder section. So I take it this then mirrors what we've got going on the desktop version.
Yeah, and this is specifically for the documents module. So if you're inside of a project and you're housing all your various documents, now it is allowing those subfolders to pass over to the iOS app. So it's a nice one to have. Oftentimes, I will say what we end up doing more times than not is the only document that will go into a project is just a link to the WorkDrive folder. Because the minute that you pull a file from WorkDrive into a project, it's now a static version. It's not like referring to that live document anymore. So oftentimes we advise people to just pull in like the link to the folder in WorkDrive and work things that way, because then you're always on the live documents. But if you are doing things that require those to go in, like maybe you're working blueprints or floor plans that are just going to go directly to a project, it's definitely a nice way to do it this way.
Nice. And while not necessarily brand new this week, Zoho released SalesIQ, 3 weeks ago, the new version. And it seems like every week they're putting out articles saying, oh, by the way, here's some of the features that are in there. And even though we kind of covered these when it was released, a lot of these are really kind of interesting to me. So you now have got terms to handle your business accurately in AnswerBot. So you can set up various terms, and the AnswerBot is going to use these to basically help you with your answers. So it's going to improve the efficiency. It seems like there's a lot of these that are kind of very close to each other. Last week we had the ones where you were kind of bundling what you were going to, basically the cadence of your speech, or I should say the tone of your speech, right? Is it going to be formal or is it going to be casual? It just seems to be another iteration of that.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice change to make. I mean, the AnswerBot, I think, is going to be a pretty nice little feature here inside of SalesIQ because, on one side of the aisle, you have the Zobot, right? And you're going to build out a particular flow for that. It's more of like you're trying to get them to an endpoint, right? Talk to a representative, leave us a message, right? Something like that. Whereas this AnswerBot is more of just the Q&A, right? Someone types something in, it reads it, right? And correlates it to various articles that can then be served up for the customer. And the nice thing about that is that it's just totally automated, right? So you're not having to touch any of this stuff. And terms are sweet because, natural language processing does a good job and it'll do better and better over time, right? As it is a machine learning model. I mean, you're going to see a year from now, AnswerBot will be exponentially more accurate than it is now. But being able to actually drop in terms kind of helps the AnswerBot. Yeah. So, you could say, hey, password is the same as credential, is the same as login. And so if it gets the word login, well, it knows to look for articles related to passwords. Right. So you're kind of helping bridge the gap a little bit for it. I'm interested to see. I'm excited to implement one of these. I might play around with it in our own little version of SalesIQ and take a look, because I think these are something that you could deploy with very little code and get a lot of benefit from.
But then more on the AnswerBot side of things is they now have UAQs, which are user asked questions. So you actually can now build a database of these user asked questions and answers.
Which is sweet, because oftentimes what you're going to find is your AnswerBot's going to be able to do most things, but it's going to miss some stuff. And so you can go through these questions that it wasn't able to answer and then flesh out articles that answer these questions for, future customers. It's a nice little tool that allows you to kind of learn from where you might be missing things in your resources.
Yeah, and again, helping it learn, right? It's looking at the question, you're associating it with the proper. I mean, if you're watching us on YouTube, basically you've got a question, you go in, you choose the category, you associate it with a fact, you associate it with an article. Again, helping AnswerBot get better and better over time.
It looks too like you can create an article through this interface. So if there wasn't an article that was a good fit, just as you're going through these unanswered questions, you just roll them into an article and you're good to go from there.
Yeah. All right. And that brings us to our really cool implementation of the week. Do you want to take this one, or would you like me to?
I can take this one.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me give you the story behind this, and then I'll let you tell us what the team did. Yeah. So this is kind of interesting. So as you know, we use Zoom for all of our webinars. And one of the problems is that we were facing is that every time we did a webinar, after the webinar, we would go in, we would download all of the people who registered and attended. We would then go ahead and import them to the CRM, update people who were already in the CRM, then go ahead and automatically associate them with a campaign, and then update whether or not they were just attended or registered. A very, very, very time-consuming process. And we're coming around with a couple ways. I was kicking around with the marketing team saying, well, hey, let's build a Zoho form. And that way, when they fill out the Zoho form, it'll automatically put them in the CRM. And then we'll just, when they click register, we'll take them to the Zoom. We'll automatically fill in the Zoom registration form, and on and on and on. So I kind of went round and round with this. And then our, I guess, super developer Greg said to me, what are you doing? And this is what he came up with.
And so kind of what we realized a little while back that Zoom does have a full developer space on the back end. And we were playing around with a couple things there, like, posting links to our meeting recordings into a click channel, just a couple quality of life things for ourselves. But what Greg, I like that term, super developer, that should be his new title. What he had realized is that you could actually just post a webhook from Zoom anytime that someone registers or attends a webinar. And so basically what he did is set up two different flows, both of them just kicked off by a webhook. So if someone is to register for the webinar, it goes ahead and, sends that data over to Flow. Flow checks if they're an existing contact or an existing lead based on the email that they use to sign up. And then what it'll do is, based on the name of the webinar, it'll check if there is a campaign already created for that webinar. If there is no campaign created, it'll go ahead and make one. And then once it does that, it'll associate that lead or contact to that campaign with the member status of registered. But that's not all. So then once they actually attend, a second webhook fires off to a different flow, which finds that same exact person. It'll check if they're already a member of that campaign, just in case something weird happened and they weren't. But then what it'll do at the end is it'll go ahead and update them from registered over to attended. So basically kind of automated away the manual labor of logging all those people from your webinars into the CRM. And then it's also capturing all of them underneath the campaign, so we can kind of get an idea of who's showing up for what, and if they're engaging with us after they've shown up for a webinar.
And he even took it a step further, because when we set up our webinars, we also will set up sometimes 8 or 9 different links. So if you're on our YouTube channel, no matter what you're watching, in the notes, it says register for our next webinar, which is really kind of a nice thing. And we can automatically change that. And so you get a lot of people coming over from there. If we also send out a campaign saying, hey, our webinar's going here. Sometimes we've been fortunate. We work with Zoho and they're going to do it. So we give them a special link so we know it came from Zoho. Or there's our newsletter, or there's the show. There's just all of these different places where you have all these links. We're also now capturing that data inside the campaign. So over time, we can say, hey, what are the things that are really driving people to our overall webinars as we look at all these links? So really cool stuff. It's rare we talk about an implementation that was done for us, but I have a feeling this is one that a lot of people are going to want to see across the board. All right. And that brings us to our read of the week. I love Denis Pombriant. He is over at CRM Buyer. And this was talking about the old new normal. And basically, consumers' characters changed for keeps? He says not so fast. And this is really saying, are we really just going to work from home? Are we, what percentage are going to go back to concerts? What percentage aren't? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And, as I go through this, his take on this is at the end of the day is he thinks a good bulk of us are going to return to normal. I personally think most of us are going to return to normal. But he's looking at, basically Oracle and Zoom and Salesforce are all saying, hey, look, it's never going to change. Everything's going to be the same. Everything's going to be the same forever. I don't think that's the case. And anyway, he kind of somewhat agrees, but it's a great article. It got some great stats in it.
Yeah, and I think I like this one that you did highlight on the slide. From the Dr. Obvious department, we learned that 43% didn't miss commuting. So I think it'd be interesting to see. I would imagine a lot of companies are going to go to a hybrid work week, where you're probably in the office a couple days a week and remote the rest. Depending on the role, depending on kind of what types of jobs you're working. But it'll be interesting to see as we kind of hopefully come out the other end of this thing this year, what changes and what sticks around.
Yes. And 14% said they had been partially naked while on a Zoom work call. Now, does that mean just have I don't imagine it's the shirt off we're talking about here. So anyway, that could be dangerous, man. If you got to suddenly stand up, you get in big trouble.
Yeah, you're running a risk there.
Yeah. So anyway, great article. If you get a chance, give it a look. All right. And now that brings us over to newonzenatta.com. We've got a couple of things. We've got 5 tips for using Zoho Analytics. I don't know if you've read this, Tyler, but you'll have to let me know. Are these good tips? Is create dashboards for your KPIs, use data from your CRM, take advantage of embedded analytics, use group sharing, and deploy Zoho Analytics across all departments.
I think so. Sound like winners to me.
Pretty good ones there. I will tell you, there's so much with the building these dashboards. I mean, this morning we had a client that wanted to see some special stuff, and really the easiest way to do it was to pull it into analytics and just send him a link to his own private dashboard. There is a lot you can do there. And then also we dropping Friday of this week, we've got 3 integrations we recommend for Zoho Sign. And if you missed it on Tuesday of this week, which is just yesterday, since we're recording this now, we did our Zoho Recruit webinar. So we covered all the basics of Zoho Recruit, some deep settings, and I think that's a pretty good roundup. If you wanted to get started with Zoho Recruit, you could just kind of go there, and that'll get you going. Was it 45 minutes, I think?
Yeah, just about. Basically takes you through all the key stuff, setting up your basic settings, creating a job opening, getting it posted out to the proper job boards, kind of controlling your intake process, and then, working a candidate through the pipeline. So I think if you're looking to spin that up, it kind of covers all of, I think, the core steps that you need to get it up and running. All
right. And then that brings us to the resource guides. We found yet another one. And this is how to use sign-up forms effectively inside of Zoho campaigns. And this is super nice little guide. So if you aren't familiar, we actually did an entire getting started on this, I think, right? Didn't we do a Zoho campaigns getting started?
We had a quick little video on mailing lists and sign-up forms. It was kind of a combo video.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar, a sign-up form is something that's a little pop-up. It can be embedded on your website. You can send it an email. There's just a ton of things you can do with these forms. And this is just a quick little guide on how to go ahead and set those up. You can look at this. You can watch our video. All of them will help you get to where you need to be. In our video, though, we go really in depth because Campaigns and Marketing Hub have just a ton of different options when using those sign-up forms. So you might want to take full page, pop-up, persistent, whatever you want to do, all over the map. All right. That takes us to our application of the week. So this is actually over in the Zoho marketplace. Brand new integration released last week by a company called Target Robot, who appears to be a company focusing just on doing basically integrations, not just with Zoho, with a bunch of different people. But this is a Mailchimp integration for Zoho CRM. And you say, wait, but there already is a Mailchimp integration for Zoho CRM. There are a couple. This one is crazy good. It allows you to sync your contacts and leads, company information, deals, marketing activity. You can choose whether to create new contacts. You can enrich the data. You can sync across both platforms. You can search and filter by Mailchimp campaign results. Segmentation is nice. It's a pretty decent deal. $10 a month plus 1/10 of a penny per each contact synced on a monthly basis. So relatively inexpensive if you use Mailchimp. We do have a lot of clients that use Mailchimp. So I thought this would be kind of a decent one to point out. Did you get a chance to look at this at all?
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty solid. I think it's probably a little better than the one that we've used in the past that's built by Zoho or Mailchimp. And interesting little platform they have is like a connector between all these various applications. It seems like that's really their deal, is just building these connectors.
Yeah. And it's a little video they have if you actually go to the marketplace that kind of steps you through everything they're doing. There's mapping. You can add custom fields. You can bring in other fields. It's very similar to, it basically emulates almost everything you can do in Zoho campaigns, right? Except for the two-way sync. The two-way sync is the best thing ever in this entire process. And if this is really great synchronization, I suggest they make one between Zoho and Zoho campaigns. That might be helpful in and of its own right. But yeah, they are a pretty nifty little company in all the things that they do. I mean, all they do is just, they've got an agile client for Jira, and they've got this whole sync with sales deal here. So check out Target Robot and check out the Mailchimp integration for Zoho CRM. That is our application of the week. All right. And then we had our tip of the week, Tyler.
And so this was another in our series on Zoho WorkDrive. So this one's just about setting up some folders, how to customize those, how to kind of set up your permissions, and then review that audit log. Kind of everything you need to know to manage one of those team folders, which of course is pretty important. That is kind of the structure of WorkDrive, is all based on those various team folders. So a good little top down on how to get those configured based on what you need.
Yes, it is. And that brings us to our questions. What we do. Hey, Scott, we use RingCentral integration with Zoho. Do you now prefer Zoho voice integration over RingCentral? Boy, that really, really depends.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a TBD. We got to play with it a little more now that it's out on the phone bridge. I will say it's a pretty slick application itself, like as a standalone product. So as long as the integration is rock solid, then yes. But maybe give us a week or two here to play with it and just make sure that there's no sleeping bears, as they say.
Yeah, there's a lot. So I'll say this. All RingCentral does is telephony. So their back end, there are a lot of features that aren't in Zoho Voice yet. So if you're using complicated features such as ring multiple people at once, do a round robin ring, so you ring someone 3 times. If they don't answer, you ring another person 3 times. If they don't answer, you send it to voicemail, or you kind of go down the line. The intricacies that you can do with various things. There's just a whole bunch inside of RingCentral that is not inside Zoho Voice yet. But if you're looking for a basic telephony solution with just a basic IVR that's going to integrate, there's Zoho Voice is definitely worth taking a look at. It is priced quasi similarly to RingCentral, though. We need to kind of get a little better grip on that pricing and see where it comes in and how it is. But pretty good application so far. But like you say, Tyler, I think it's a big TBD, huh?
Yep.
All right. And that's going to wrap our show, guys. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. If you've got any questions or comments, you can send them over to us at info@zenatta.com or info@crmzen.com.
And on the websites is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. As always, you can follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.